right, so welcome to the second episode of this podcast where we talk about films that we have recently watched. Still don't have a name for this. I'm sure we'll come up with something eventually. Tonight's film that we are going to be talking about is Game Night. It's a 2018 feature directed by John Francis Daly and Jonathan Goldstein, with a screenplay written by Mark Perez. It stars Jason Bateman and Rachel McAdams, with Kylie Chandler, Sharon Hogan as guest stars as well. The film is about Max and Annie's weekly game night, where the brother of Max shows up named Brooks, who arranges a murder mystery party with fake thugs and federal agents. However, things go awry because it's all supposed to be part of a game, but then Brooks's brother actually gets kidnapped by actual thugs to whom he owes money.
Out of curiosity, are stars who also co-star in the movie considered guest stars, or are they just co-stars at that point?
I think it's technically co-stars. I was thinking it was more of a. I was talking about it as like a TV show. So it is the co-stars Kyle Chandler and Sharon Hogan.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to clarify.
I'd actually say that I think it dragged a little bit. I think it could have shaved off a little bit of time. But overall, I'd say it was pretty well.
There's some meandering in the middle. Plot kind of loses focus a little bit in the middle.
A little bit. A little bit.
I think it
Probably
focuses a
after.
bit on the individual development. Like, yes, there's a bunch of tiny subplots, but even though they don't necessarily tie into the overarching story, it helps develop the identity of each character. Unless y'all
I'm
are
not-
talking
well,
about
Yeah,
I'm not
well,
talking about.
I mean, we'll get into all that later. But I think that's our main focus with the duration.
Yeah, like if you just think like if they could have cut off a little bit more and if it would still made sense, if it could have been like I actually don't. What was the total length of the movie?
The
It was 1 hour and
total-
40.
5 minutes. Oh,
Yeah. So it feels a little longer than a 1 hour and 40-minute film.
Mhm.
So I'd say there was a little bit of meandering in the middle that was. I wouldn't necessarily call it unnecessary, but I feel like you could have just shaved off a little bit of time in a couple of scenes. And it's not so much. I'm not talking about like character development,
Mhm.
but like maybe 10 minutes here or there, like a throwaway line or something, just wasn't really necessary, or there was an action scene dragged on a little long. Kind
Yeah,
of a thing.
I feel like the main scene where I kind of felt it was dragging was some of the cop scenes and then some of the Fight Club scenes.
Yeah, I'd say the Fight Club was a little bit long, and then I feel like honestly, like that opening fight could have been a little bit.
That was
tighter.
a bit long. That was, yeah.
I mean, it
Which
was
one?
nice and excessive,
opening
and
fight?
kind of like like the opening fight. Like I'd say like it was nice and excessive in the sense of like we definitely see maybe Brooks isn't who we think he is. Either that or these are just really good actors.
Mhm.
And then there's a couple of twists and turns that like I feel they could have done a little differently. And it
You
would have
made
shaved.
it less obvious.
I mean,
Oh no. It's like actually I liked the obviousness of some of this. Like there's a lot of tropes in this film.
mhm.
I think it does really well with.
I kind of want to say like about the trope stuff. It is a film that's kind of one of these films that comes along and knows that we know the kind of game that it's already playing, and where the characters are already in on that kind of the game ship where they already know everything is fake. And there's enough moments and a few gags here and there where it still surprised me at least, or did make me laugh unexpectedly.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mhm.
I and we'll get into this later. I'm kind of questioning where that's all leading to beyond just a bag of tricks.
We are gathered here today with our friend Jed's Method making a guest appearance because he doesn't watch the movies with us all the time. So, what were your opening thoughts on the movie?
I honestly had no how was this gonna go through. Like, I've heard of it. I wanted to watch it, but it was one of those movies that would just slip my mind. Like, oh, okay, they made that movie. I'll watch it eventually.
Damn. Okay.
So would you say, like, overall, what were your impressions of it? Did you enjoy it? Was
Oh,
it
I
kinda like,
definitely do. I would watch it at least a few more times.
At least one more.
at
time.
least one more time?
At least.
The other thing is, this is a
least
movie
a few
that
more
never
times.
really takes itself seriously, and thank God it doesn't, because it would make this movie way harder
would
to
make it work.
appreciate.
Let's move on to the scenes. Anybody has like anything specific they wanted to say about any scenes? So if we had any like questions or whatever was like happening, you were like, "What the fuck is going on?" Stuff like that. Let's talk about that.
The funniest part is when what's his name was at proposing him through what's it called, fucking
Charades?
Charades.
hand gestures and everything,
Mm-hmm.
and then pointing to the friend that's like drinking the beer.
Oh
and
yes.
he just kept saying,
I'm so
"Alone."
happy for you.
The fact that she kept saying single, depressed, alone. What?
Two words.
That's
What?
people on the same level.
Overweight.
No.
Single. Out of work. Carrie. Carrie.
I would personally, I think this film has actually got some really good, this is a lot of relationship goal moments throughout the entire film, where
Okay,
it's just
sounds
the way Jason Bateman interacts with Rachel McAdams. It's like just the way those two characters. This is probably one of the best descriptions and best depictions of a healthy relationship that we
Mhm.
have seen in movies.
I mean,
and
short
very
of
It was
the
strong.
way they hold guns to each other.
Oh my
like-
god. Let's talk about that.
hold guns to each other because they think it's a game. So they're having fun. They don't realize that it's actually her holding a pistol in his face. It's it's kind of like if you're with someone and you're doing that, they have the really nice snarky jabs at each other. Like there's that scene in the doctor's office where they're like you can see that it's kind of like they're niggling at each other, where they've got like these little moments of like oh, it's totally his sperm count and it's all on him. But he's also self-deprecating about it, so it's like he's opening himself up to be made fun of.
Mhm.
But it's done in such a way that this is kind of the. It's relationship goals in my opinion. Like they know each other to such a degree that the conflict of this film is not you're never afraid they're gonna lose their relationship. That was actually one of the things I was kind of worried about. I was worried about seeing them struggle through a relationship because they talk about how you don't know what you've got till it's gone at one
Mhm.
point.
I mean,
And
she straight up shot the man. So
This is true.
if
They recovered from
anything's
that
gonna
pretty
be a
quickly,
deal
though.
breaker-
What I like is
Go ahead.
what I like during the same doctor scene is that what's the name? The doctor was trying to hook up with his brother.
yes,
Keith, so do you think your brother would want to grab a cup of coffee with me?
Oh my god.
Gosh, I don't know.
Well, it doesn't hurt to ask.
Hurts a little.
Now, is he a tall fella? Because I'm only 5'2".
We're all done with my semen.
Is taller than Max. Good.
Everyone's tall. Oh, okay.
He always
But-
has that little quirk too. That's what I like about his
Back-
acting.
Back to the gun holding, regardless
Oh my
of whether
God.
you think it's a prop or not.
Yeah, that's not a good idea to point that at somebody.
Oh my
I
shit!
mean,
like,
never
whatever.
do that.
For the sake of a comedy, for the sake of a comedy.
oh
Yeah.
yes, for the
Yeah.
and that's why I like the movie. But like, if I was the actor or actress, even if even if I can tell it's plastic, it's still like. Oof.
Of like a gun.
It's not something
No,
I want to play
no.
with. Like, I
So-
enjoy
IRL, no
target
thanks.
shooting and all, but damn.
what you're telling me is you would never go to laser tag with someone you actually like playing laser tag with and pointing a gun at the other person during laser tag.
Incorrect, because so. Look, a prop weapon is designed to look somewhat realistic. A Nerf gun, short of like actually being stupid and like being an asshole pointing it at someone's face, is designed to be shot at people. It's enjoyable. It's a funness toy. Laser tag is kind of the same way. There's no barrel. It's a solid encased object, and it's also a laser gun. So I mean, maybe you could hurt. someone
I
with it.
feel like you're just getting hung up on something that's superfluous and unnecessary.
It's not superfluous. Look, man, if in the realistic sense, even if it's a
Yeah, but
prop gun, you're making a huge assumption that it's a prop gun. They thought it was a fake gun because it was the game, yes, but even so,
Ends up
like
having
and they
his
don't
brother
own a
is
gun.
his
Neither of them are
brother-
gun owners. It's very obvious.
well,
Yeah, but
okay.
hold up, it
The
still has
instant reaction should be
consequences.
treated as a real weapon until you know otherwise. Like
Uh-huh.
Like
that's
the,
how he ended up shot, and her reaction was kind of realistic. But
I like-
later on, they're still just fucking flailing real guns.
like at the
As if-
airport tarmac. She's like,
Do you want this?
Oh my god.
I don't want you to have the calamity, James. Hey, look.
and
And
I'm
he's like,
how does
please
she have
don't
no
point that
pin-"
at me. I mean, there's some control there, but
I don't know. Her finger was on the
And-
trigger. I don't know.
and
Oh my
remembering
God.
how he's like,
Back there.
Let's put your head down. Come on. I don't want to have to use this, okay?
Jesus Christ.
oh my God, that just adds to the great
That was
stupidity
fantastic.
and phenomenal.
Oh, as well as in the
humor
bar
this movie.
scene. In the bar scene when she's just toying around with the revolver.
Oh my god.
I'm packed and I'm holding, I'm smiling. She's living, she's golden, she's this for me. Sing it to the mic. Jesus. No. She goes round and she goes down. And you taps, you got
What
something
is
to say.
going on?
Jesus.
Come over here.
We've been captured by psychopaths.
Stop to the rhythm.
Oh my god.
I see you eyeing that ponytail.
That went off.
Bingo, bingo. I got him, baby. Let's do this.
Oh
She
yeah.
drops it.
She takes
I'm
the
like,
selfie
oh.
with the gun in her
Oh
mouth.
my-
Oh.
oh,
She's holding the guys down, and they're like the only people that are reacting as if it is a real gun. 'cause
Yeah,
they have
yeah.
No idea that they have no idea.
It was good.
So it just comes off as like a natural born killer scene. It's awesome.
Oh my God, the cop. The cop is
Let's talk about that end where he was
Gary. Is just
No idea.
We're gonna have to
marvelous.
dedicate a special section to him in the character section.
Oh my God.
I wanna- Somebody also brought up the dog scene, or the
Oh
blood
yes.
on
The,
the dog gag.
oh.
Oh my god.
Oh no, what is
Oh,
that
no.
shirt?
What is that?
Oh no.
No, that's just gonna make it worse.
Hopefully it's not like some Demi related shirt.
Could be a Debbie related.
No!
He's like, no!
It's fine.
He cried out.
Tell me about Debbie.
Oh.
I beg your pardon.
I never met her. I'd love to hear all about her.
This woman is a lifesaver.
Damn.
In more ways than one. Jesus Christ.
Where do I begin?
Still those guns.
Bro, just take him to the bathroom.
Here we go. Here we go, huh?
What are we watching?
This is not
Please stop.
working.
Oh, it's so
Just
much
make it
worse.
worse.
Oh god.
This is so cringe.
What is this thing?
Oh no! Oh my god! It's doomed. Just fucking doomed.
Fuck this.
My
Oh,
God.
no.
Okay, so
That
can
was
we
this
all
movie's
agree?
cringe moment. That was
Can we
this
all
moment's
agree
react
that
moment.
Max should have been dead, like 12 times in that movie, just straight
Yeah.
past? He lost the amount of blood on that dog.
Yeah.
How is he not
Could
at
have
least
been like, I feel
lightheaded
woozy.
by that
Why
point?
the fuck do I feel woozy?
Bro, that man took a bullet, took a slice in the arm, another knife in the same hole, and he was vibing the whole movie.
just a small incision straight up cut his arm almost to his elbow.
And then when
Why
she was
is
trying,
it so big?
and then when she's trying to look for the
Yeah.
bone, or the bullet, she's like, wait, that sounds like that doesn't sound like a bullet. That sounds like a bone. He's
What
like,
is
oh,
this
that's
clicking
flying
sound?
What is this?
What is this sound?
That would, in
Honestly-
reality, that would have hurt so much.
Oh yeah, he would have been the okay.
Right,
Every
and
instance
screaming.
where he there's only one instance where his arm is hit and he actually reacts with a painful glance, and that's when popcorn's dropped on it. Oh, yummy,
So think
yummy,
about
yum,
that-
Just what I was looking.
So
for.
think about that tiny like thing that she poked into the hole, and think about the knife that went in that same hole. That hit both.
Right? I think I would be the same way. I would be the
No,
same
that
way.
was, that was a
don't-
good gag.
But who the
Yeah.
hell did you?
It's like that was crazy,
Oh.
but you know what? You know what's even more crazy? Can't figure out who he slept with.
We've been together since we were 14.
I just
Remember, it
love the
was on
big
that
reveal,
break.
and then I like the big reveal, and it shows some random dude. And she's
Yeah.
like, was like Denzel. I'm like, that's not fucking Denzel.
Exactly.
Not even remotely
Oh
close.
my gosh. And then the very so if any of you end up watching this, if we ever end up having anyone watching these videos or podcasts, whatever the hell, after the credits, just trust me, fast forward if you want to, just watch the
I think that's the
after credits
last
scene.
minute, I think.
Yeah, it's so spectacular. It's oh, and the what would it be like the end credit sequence before like the boring credits scroll? Not to say that they're boring, but I mean they're
I do like how they how none of the jokes are just kind of they don't linger. They always come back in full circle. Like they always use it. They like open a joke and then they close it in like a different scene somehow.
yeah,
If that
it's
makes any
never
sense.
just punchline,
I feared
punchline,
that-
punchline. It's always here's the open, little pause, and then a succession to that previous running gag.
I initially feared that with the running gag with the why
Celebrity.
can't I remember his name? Yeah, with the celebrity. You slept with the celebrity. That whole thing. I was originally scared because he was bringing it up quite a lot.
No, there's something
I'm
about this
sorry.
that just
The
doesn't
one
feel
threatening?
right. How could you cheat on me with a
Oh
celebrity?
my
I didn't cheat on you. It was before we got married when we took that break.
What has
Oh, you're blowing
shiny
it, man.
fangs that bites white things?
You're blowing it with an Irish lass.
A stapler. And the white things are paper.
Yes, you are so smart and unfaithful.
We're gonna light a fire in a windowless room that we're trapped in.
You slept with Bill Nye, the science guy. He talks about flames.
What about that?
That was good.
That
They
was
just kept
funny.
bringing it up continuously, and that's where I kind of feared like what we mentioned earlier. That's where a little bit of the lull came in, like where I think it kind of was in a few two steps before she finally caved in and was like, "All right."
Mm-hmm.
I
Here.
did, Jesus. But
But I do love
think
how
it,
in that gag, like we see an imagination of Denzel, and then it's confirmed that it was all along. Because I didn't know who to trust at that point, or whose perspective. that
If
was
he
really
made an appearance for that one like beginning scene that she imagined, that would have been hilarious.
Jeez,
That would have been
fucking
hilarious.
when I
actually
first
think
saw
it's better
this
that he
movie, I
didn't put
thought
it
it
on that he
was
shows up
like,
for the other credit scene. Like that was the funny part.
Mm.
Like
Wait.
the fact that he shows up for that scene right there instead of the other one, like I thought it was great. And the character you're
He
thinking of
wasn't
is
in
it was Kevin in the movie, and you're thinking of Lamorne Morris.
To be honest, I haven't watched the Terminator series too much. so I'm
I actually,
not
I don't
really
think the
invested.
room actually knew what he was talking about. I think they all just kind of were like, "What?"
Yeah, like
Yeah.
nobody knew who Cyberdyne was. Okay, fine. We as the audience know he's talking about Terminator.
Yeah.
I knew what it was.
I didn't. I'm an ignorant prick.
Yeah, feels bad.
And Ryan is the think with the penis first and nothing after. Every time we see Ryan, he's with another hot lady who's like Instagram has no brain, or at least they're portrayed that way. And he finally is with a wonderful woman. Her name is Sarah, and she's very intelligent and I guess a bit of a cougar in this sense because she's going out with Ryan. She's a little older than him. And she's trying to do something new, and Ryan just constantly puts his foot into his own mouth, preventing any chemistry between them, preventing any ability to actually be with someone who has any intellectual value. So the reason why he brought her was actually not to be on a date with her so much as have a ringer or someone intelligent to help win some of the game night games. Because that man is dumb as a box of rocks. But unfortunately, and both fortunately for the movie, some of his assumptions and the few things he's actually read in his lifetime turn out to be accurate, which just turns into a much better long-running gag through the movie because we think he's a dumbass, and eventually he's proven to be still a dumbass, but at least an accurate dumbass.
Accurate dumbass, yeah. Moments that he says I was right, I'm like, holy shit, he was right. The dumbass in the movie was right.
And everyone else had no clue.
I kind
Right. And I
of,
was like, holy shit.
I kind of had a feeling that he was going to be because he needed to be there for some other reason. He had to serve some purpose to the story. He couldn't just be a, wild card.
When all that stuff was happening, I was like, he's gonna grab a gun, he's gonna shoot himself, thinking it's a game.
Gary's character is introduced to us as a creepy, like self-loathing, not really loathing, but like hella creepy stalker slash serial killer type cop personality. He's very stern-faced, has no emotion in his voice whatsoever. Everything he says is of the same steely glance. Nothing ever changes, and he's over analytical, or at least appears to be. So, and he's missing hanging out with who were previously his friends, Max and Annie, and their game nights, because apparently they throw bomb-ass game nights.
Or as their view, he was just someone they dealt with.
Exactly. They stopped liking him. They were no longer friends, but they were still neighbors, and they tried to avoid having him in any of the game nights. Because unbeknownst to us early on, his wife divorced him, and he worships his wife to a unhealthy degree, straight up with a shrine to her of all the memories.
Oh my god.
Which fits so well with his character, because Max just destroys every momentum that he has of his wife and every memoir that they've shared, and bleeds on his damn dog, almost to the point of death.
Yep. A point of, I think probably yes. He would have at least been unconscious with the amount of blood loss.
This is true.
Yeah. Still, I really liked that character. I thought that it was one of those situations when Gary first shows up. He has that like creepy serial killer vibe, but I'm like, at the same time, I was like, oh, I feel for this man so much, because he's just gone through a divorce. He obviously looks like he's hurting, and he's just being straight up shunned by his neighbors. I'm like, oh, that poor man.
So
that's why it's kind of, it's kind of painful when you do see, it's kind of double cringe when you see the dog bleeding scene, because you are seeing that this dude is, really vulnerable, but he's also kind of made his pain the reason why everybody resists him so much socially, because he just keeps bringing it up whenever he's free to. So that's why it's both hilarious but double cringe on top of it.
Not
exactly.
Smirch my ex-wife like that.
And like he always has his dog and always petting him.
I'm
like,
gonna give
evil
MVP.
way.
Mr. Evil, I presume.
Yeah,
I am going to give MVP to Jesse Plemons for pulling it off. Like, he is a phenomenal character actor, and he's done it before in Breaking Bad and The Irishman and several other pieces. I can't remember. Vice as well.
If you really think about it, Annie kind of did everything. Like, throughout the whole movie. Like, whenever there was a problem or situation, she really did everything.
She did. She is probably she's a great example of a strong female character that's actually written well, and like is not just kind of like bashing you over the head with whatever message they're trying to get across.
I mean, did she really do that much?
She literally
she
did everything.
Fight the bad guys at the end.
She took the gun. She started the whole like badass thing. She hit the dude with the fire extinguisher twice.
That was all at the
I
end.
kind of wanted to say that even though Rachel McAdams is clearly having a lot of fun playing her, and makes it a lot of fun for us as the audience, I don't really think the character has that much of a character arc.
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean. Like, yes, she did things, but I think in all honesty, it was a combination. It kind of felt like the movie stumbled over itself, and it was just sheer dumb luck for events to just fold into itself, which is part of what makes this a lot of fun. Like, I'm not looking for any depth of story in this, and there's moments where we're expecting a twist, and we're like, please don't, you're just going to ruin the movie. And they don't, which makes it even more pleasant, because they didn't go the cheap, easy route and saying, oh yeah, there was a second twist, and this is now a heist movie, and I knew everything. It was wonderful that it played that up, and then it was like, psych, just kidding, not at all. I didn't plan for any of this.
I really liked the multi-twists that we had going on, and the thing is that I was like, as soon as I saw the Gary, like whenever he first walks on Jesse Plemons, as soon as he walks up on screen and he starts talking, I'm like, oh no, this man's gonna catch a bullet. he's gonna die. I don't know, not the poor divorcee. It's like I was like so worried for him, and then we get to that situation where they're on the bridge, and all of a sudden, boom!
Oh my god, my heart broke.
I was like,
was like,
Fake blood
no.
packet, and we're like, oh, okay, everything's good, and you have a sense of relief. And then, blam! Random rifle shot straight through
I
his
was
chest.
so
I'm
not
talking
ready
about
for
the
that.
okay.
I was
Okay,
Yeah.
so to give this kind of context, basically throughout the entire film is the murder mystery game that Brooks sets up. Well, at the same time that Brooks sets up the murder mystery game, then there is the Bulgarian who is trying to get Brooks and sets up his own kidnapping of Brooks, which happens to coincide with the initial opening sequence where he gets kidnapped. However, in the background, through this entire thing, we have Gary, who has manipulated everyone. He's gotten some buddies on the police force to set up their own sting of the murder mystery game, separate from the Bulgarian. So it's
Well,
thread
actually, the
number
Actually, I think
Bulgarians weren't actually involved in this originally. This was all set up originally by Brooks, with Jeffrey Wright playing the FBI agent, coming in and saying you're all a part of the murder
Yes.
mystery.
Yes.
And then the people who actually kidnap Brooks was hired by Gary. They were felons.
They were felons.
And that was set up by Gary. And then the Bulgarian comes up once Gary's game has
that's what it was.
reached its end
Yeah.
and shoots Gary.
Well, no, it was yeah, and so no,
So the
'cause he had-
Bulgarian wasn't involved
No, no,
because
no, no.
the Bulgarian was looking for Brooks, but the Bulgarian was tracking Brooks all night. He didn't have anyone involved in the game or involved in the kidnapping. It was after Gary came and became Superman and saved the day that then the Bulgarian was involved in the movie authentically. Now, yes, there was the Fabergé egg, which was a part of Brooks's uncertainty because Brooks wasn't in on Gary's situation. Brooks
No.
thought it was the Bulgarian who kidnapped him
Mhm.
and told them about the Fabergé egg. So they grabbed the Fabergé egg. Meanwhile, the two thugs of Gary had no clue what the hell the Fabergé egg was worth or what it was for. So they then go to the mansion to get the Fabergé egg and to save Brooks from who they thought was the Bulgarian, which was actually Gary's setup. And in doing so, they actually brought the egg to the Bulgarian because he was tracking Brooks down.
The Bulgarian
Yeah,
was
I
kind of a
think-
letdown for me. I'm gonna be honest.
I-
Like he definitely was
Agreed.
not.
He was not a badass at all. He wasn't serious. It wasn't a great enough threat, in my opinion, for a secondary climax to the film.
The Bulgarian part? I don't
Yeah.
know. I thought it was kind of like he just shows up and is like, he has no idea what's going on. Like, I thought he was a big enough threat in that sense. And, you know, I think it's actually a testament to how twisty this film is, because I think you're actually remembering it wrong, too. Like, you're getting events placed out of order.
Oh, really? What
Yeah.
makes you say that?
Because the whole thing starts with Max and Annie tracking Brooks down after he got caught to the seedy bar using the pistol that Brooks had left behind during the struggle.
Yes.
And then after that, Brooks talks about the Fabergé egg, and so that's when they start hunting for the Fabergé egg. And
Yes,
so,
but that was after Brooks was kidnapped again, because they
You
took
mean
him
he let
again.
himself get kidnapped?
It wasn't so.
No.
So
no, he tells
first
them about the
took him-
Fabergé eggs, and then he gives himself up to the men behind him.
yes,
Yeah.
because yeah. In which case he is now in their custody yet again, but he doesn't know they're not for the Bulgarian. He thinks they're the Bulgarians, and so that gives Max and Annie enough time to find the Fabergé egg in the hopes to free Brooks. Because in all honesty, if it was the Bulgarian, Brooks would have been dead as soon as he gave himself up again.
Well, didn't they call and what did they say on the phone call?
They called Gary. Gary said, "Meet me at the bridge."
Oh, right. Okay.
Otherwise, Brooks dies.
And he had no idea what they were talking about with the egg.
Exactly.
Correct. But they've already collected the Fabergé egg by that point, and they're bringing it to them because it has the knock list in there. It has that list of the
Hidden
people
agents
in the
and all that.
WITSEC program.
Right.
And so they've already discovered that by the time they go to rescue him, quote unquote, from Gary's men.
And
And
they break
so it's whenever they go to the address of Marlon Freeman, where let's see, I'm kind of looking this up a second. So they searched the house, and that was where Ryan saw the egg. So that was where he was vindicated about his whole thing with the Fight Club being a thing. And they see the egg in the
Fabergé
wall, and they
egg,
escape
yeah.
with it.
Oh my god, him stealing the eggs. Fucking.
Oh my
Oh no.
Who the hell are you?
Me?
Yeah. Who are you? And what are you doing with my egg?
Oh, I was just admiring it. I got a bunch of these fancy pants eggs back at home in my mansion.
Uh-huh.
This one's ugly.
Does anybody know this guy?
Like,
that was
It's like, wait.
oh, this Fabergé.
Hang on, what- this is ugly.
This one's ugly.
and that's whenever
My
they go.
big thing is that he just walked up to the safe,
Right?
grabbed it out, and no one noticed him.
Until the
Until
fight.
he
Perfect
and-
timing.
Like landed on his feet. I was just like, how did no one see this man
Yeah.
walking up to the
Who are you?
or like a second dude like protecting the dude that was putting money in there.
Yeah, what the fuck? Worst
Oh, like-
security ever.
Yup.
They bring the Fabergé egg. They break the
It's
egg right at the end.
On the
and then-
way, and so that's whenever the list is revealed, and then they have the whole shootout, and then they're like, they promise to invite Gary to the future game nights. Once that happens, that's when the Bulgarian shows up.
Yep.
And does all of that, because that was, so they've already gotten the Fabergé egg, and he just wants the list, and that's whenever he's like been, hunting
Tracking
Brooks for that list.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Fucking Brooks. He's like, all right, now we gotta
Do I
take you.
look like an asshole, or are you an asshole? Because we're both not assholes. Then why don't I have my egg, and why don't you have your money? And then the longest chase scene, second only to the goddamn Fast 5 plane scene.
I think that was the joke.
Which is what it was parodying.
Yeah.
Like
Oh
that
my
was
God.
the joke. It was the amount of little like subtle Easter eggs and parodies of other films in this film is
And
just
call
great.
outs of films like Avengers, Harry Potter. I think there's even a Lord of the Rings mentioned. I may be misremembering that part of it. That may not have been it. But then Fast 5, like, oh, this movie is just wonderful with pop
I just
culture
love how it
references.
misses on the first try.
Oh yeah, complete
like,
whip.
Like you
"Yeah."
missed. Thanks, Eddie.
Yeah, and there was also like some really interesting what you call it like subtle nods to other films and just some really interesting editing in the movie.
Oh yeah, let's
that
go
I
with
just I really enjoyed. Like there was some there was a sequence where they were doing like was it during the fight, or I'm trying to remember exactly where it was, where they were like walking along and then they would do like a quick little set of cuts and then they would cut back to the scene. Oh, that was a cool shot.
That was cool. I like that. Yeah.
That was a really nice shot.
Okay.
That
Oh,
shot
that,
was really
yeah, yeah,
cool. I
That
like
was
that
cool.
shot.
The other aspect of this, so the movie is called Game Night, but the really nice thing about it is there's so many echoes to different like small games here and there, and periodically they will have shots that kind of reminds me of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, where it's zoomed out
Yeah.
and it's kind of a mock city
It's
and
like a
mock
toy camera.
Honestly, it
Filter or
reminded me
something
of
It's- exactly, and the car would drive up and it looked like it was Monopoly car pulling up to a property with a house on it or a hotel on it. It was really good like that, and I, even though it didn't necessarily like have any principle beyond tying the name to the movie, I still like the shot and it keeping with the idea of it being a game movie.
To jump off of Ambrose's point with the games, basically there's like you've got the whole fact that whenever she holds the gun to everybody, they're like playing Simon Says, and then it's like they're playing hot potato with the egg as they're like tossing it around to everybody.
Don't drop the egg, yeah.
They're like, don't drop the egg, don't drop the egg. And then they have that whole where they do the charades, they're like because they can't hear each other across the.
Oh yeah, to
my
close
God,
the thing.
no.
It's like turn. Okay, three words. Okay, turn on belt. Turn on belt. And she
And
turns
fucking turns it on, and it's fucking
I like how they were-
Charades. Oh my god, that's some cute full circle bullshit. Here we go. 3 words.
Come on, lady. Where are you?
who's
Turn.
god. Went a lot slower than I thought.
Boy, that's a slow build.
Please still fall on him.
What is going on?
Why could be filled with
Like
something?
slow back up to the
Crash. I like how they were
Oh.
expecting the conveyor belt to go fast because of the box on there. It was just going like literally slow. I was like,
So
he's gonna
slow.
back up. See this thing smack?
Yep.
He's like, all right, fucking get over here.
The game by because that's
Yes,
what
sir.
reminded you, me, and Kelly of.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not. It does
Fully
not take
expect
itself
some
seriously
Jackass
at
to
all.
put in the comments, lost the
No,
game.
not at all.
No,
You didn't
'cause
think so?
The game is much more different. No, the game is much more different tonally. It is, it's
Yes.
meant to
Oh, yeah, of
be
course.
more of a thriller. Like it is
Mhm.
meant to fuck with you, and even to the point where. But the ending is, God damn it, spoilers ahead for those who haven't seen the game by this point. But the ending does
Too
create a
old
bit
for
of
it to
a,
matter.
So my curiosity was, a while back when Battleship was first being made, there was discussion of them like kind of doing one-offs of individual board games. Like Connect 4, I think was the next movie they had once discussed shooting. Because Battleship obviously plays into the game of Battleship. They incorporate the buoys, blah blah blah, fire, miss, yada yada yada. It doesn't heavily follow the game, but I enjoyed the movie for what it was. But there's also Tag, which isn't related to this.
That one
It's
was
act-
so
that's-
funny.
That's related to an actual real life game of tag with a bunch of adults who were always constantly tagging someone else to beat it. It was kind of how they kept together. But there's also the escape room, and all these games kind of fit into the idea. Now they're different genres. The Battleship is being an action genre. This one's a comedy.
I feel like Escape Room was a little bit more related to Saul than it would be like a game.
Well, it was
Yeah, it
also
kinda
kind agreed, but if you were to say, I want to make a game, I want to make a series of movies based off of games, but different genres in them, that could completely fall into the scope of a horror movie. Because how are you going to make like something like I suppose you could do Uno as opposed in a horror manner, but it would take some really creative writing.
I'm
But
sure
an
there's
escape room
one.
that you're locked into. Excuse me. An escape room you're locked into and you will die if you don't escape is honestly, I think, is a little easier to structure. Now, it's not to say that there aren't people who aren't capable of writing a scary Uno movie. But even so, the thing that I wasn't sure was, are these in any way linked either via producer or the writers or any way? Because there was that discussion, and I read that years ago, so I don't know if there was actually if it was just a kind of a mutually agreed upon thing, or if just Hollywood fell into making a bunch of game movies anyway.
As far as I'm aware, there is not a board game cinematic universe. It is literally just these films started coming out, and it was someone made a movie. I believe Battleship was the first one, and then everyone's like, "Oh gosh, that's a great idea. Let's make a movie on a board game, on a child game."
I'll tell you what. The reason why Battleship got made is because it was also the next project from Hasbro Studios, which had just come out, making
It was
Transformers.
Hasbro.
Which is
Okay,
why it
there you
has
go,
many
yeah.
of the same, characteristics as those other films. So
yeah,
less of a
which is-
film that really follows, any plot that you could apply to Battleship, and they don't really incorporate it into the plot, from what I remember. You can see
All right,
why.
Diego.
Yeah, we're
What
gonna
were you saying?
My question is, how would they do Sorry, Connect 4, and Life?
Sorry could actually be so. Sorry, if you were to do it, it could be the idea of you have to make a life or death situation, or you have to make a decision that will either benefit yourself without harming anyone, or based off the cards life has dealt you, would extremely harm someone, putting them back to square zero, like emptying someone's bank account, or
Just gonna turn into Yes Man.
What?
It's gonna turn into Yes Man.
I haven't seen that movie either.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Checkers is just gonna be people beheading each other.
Oh,
Oh yeah. It's one of those Crown King and starts beheading everyone.
Yeah,
How would you do Life? Would Life be like kind of horrible?
life.
like-
We just live life. What are you talking about?
that is the
dude?
game. We're in it right now.
Yeah,
but
there already is a
would be
Life
compared
movie.
to, like,
It's
at the end,
called.
compare how much you
they,
have.
no, they made a movie of the game of life. It's called Boyhood.
Actually, I can see that one. It's not very funny or horrific.
Piece of it.
Yeah, it's like that's
I
just the very first opening part of the game. We've still got to wait for them to come out with the adulthood, which is when they
Okay,
record.
we got American board games out, so we got other board games though.
So I think making a series of movies off of board games for the sake of doing that is a dumb idea. I understand why you would do it because you have a built-in kind of conflict
structure,
and structure. Like you have that already built into the game. But it's a situation of like there's a reason why Battleship kind of is blech, and it's like why is it called Battleship? It's like well they're on a ship and they do battle with aliens. It really doesn't go anywhere with that. And
I mean, I agree. It wasn't a structure like.
What exactly would be the plot to Connect 4 movie? I'm curious.
Well, I agree. That's what I'm saying. Like, for instance, the way they did Battleship
I'm not saying you couldn't
kind of
do
makes
it, but if
logical
you did,
sense.
you've almost got to go all the way if you do it. You almost got to be completely shamelessly dumb. And Battleship almost went to that point, and then kind of just played.
I never actually saw Battleship.
Chaos.
What they should have
I
done
enjoyed the
instead of,
movie.
like,
It's a pretty good
Battleship,
action flick. It's not a story to make you think. It's not like wow, humanity's better as a result of this or humanity's tragic. It's literally just cowboys versus aliens in big ass.
Oh,
now,
I refuse to ever watch that movie.
No,
there's some badass.
Compare Battleship to Cowboy versus Aliens. You take that back.
Cowboy.
I definitely probably give it a probably 8 out of 10. I'll watch it again.
8 out of 10.
Pretty high.
It's not a bad movie. I don't blame you. That's no good.
It's not bad. I would watch it again because there are films I would watch repeatedly.
Would you recommend to a family member?
Not my family members.
Oh
no.
Okay.
All
right.
No,
They're all dead.
They would not get it. They'd be confused, lost, and they would probably ignore it.
Damn. All right.
Well, maybe my brother, but that's about it.
Fair enough.
So I would give this a 6 out of 8 on a D8. So 6 out of 8 on a date. That's what I would give it.
Oh, okay.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Here you go, your turn.
I would give this 3.5 stars out of 5. It's smartly made, and it it plays to its strengths. Clearly, the people who were cast in it are having a lot of fun with the material and having a lot of fun with each other, and subsequently, the audience has a lot of fun with it as well. It is not a joyless, dark comedy by any stretch.
It's not a DC movie.
No. Oh, Jesus. But yeah, there are some. Like I said before, I do feel like there are some times where it kind of knows when it's being a little too smart for its own good, but it isn't doing so in such a smug, intolerable way. Just kind of in a way where it gets a little tired, maybe a little repetitive, maybe some of the gags wear out their welcome, and for that, it kind of holds it back for me from wanting to revisit it again. But I enjoyed it for the time that we spent with it.
I would give this probably 3 out of 4 pints of human blood, I suppose.
Nice.
That man should have totally been dead.
True.
It wasn't a bad movie. It's definitely enjoyable, but it's not really a movie to make you think. It's kind of predictable, but it's predictable in a fun kind of way. It's not one that's disappointing if you get it wrong. Although if you get it wrong, you should probably read some more books. But I enjoyed it. It was a nice comedy film. Not exactly my term for date, but to each their own.
I'll give it a 4 out of 5 watermelons, just because that definitely was not Denzel Washington. That was funny.
Oh yes, that was fucking
So would
marvelous.
it complete it if it was Denzel Washington?
Yeah, it would have been 5.
Oh my god.
Alrighty, yeah.
The next movie on our
Game
list
night was a
is,
great date night.
It's a good movie for watching on a date, but
Oh, yeah,
no,
it'll be a fun
not,
date
it
movie.
is
I
is
recommend
not
it.
relationship goals.
It is
Fucking
relationship
handle
goals.
A gun, the way it's designed
I'll
to
say
be
this.
hit.
You are
Dave-
so hung up on the wrong details, my friend.
Bruh, she could have fucking killed him. No
Hung up
question.
on the wrong.
Kelly,